Okay, so today we're going to go over how to build drip campaigns in Go High Level. And if you're a little unfamiliar with what is a drip campaign, a lot of questions coming our way recently about that. A drip campaign is when you get a new lead or a contact in your CRM and you want to send them continuous emails, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once a year. It doesn't really matter the frequency. However, you want to build something out that you can drop somebody into the email sequence and they'll get the emails from the first one all the way down to however many you have. We've built drip campaigns that have 52 weekly emails. So however you decide to build it, but you always drop them in at the top. And then, a week later, they get message number 2. 2 weeks later, they get message number 3, and so forth. Well, the benefit of that is that it's built. You can use it for whoever your audience is. And today, the example I'm going to use is for bruised credit. So let's just say you get a new lead, they've got bad credit, but you still want to stay in touch with them. You would add them to a drip campaign so that you can set, forget, and that they continue to get messages from you without you having to work. Now, the key to a successful drip campaign is that it's evergreen, which means that no matter what the content is in your email or your text messages for this campaign, that it always works, that it's not time sensitive. You're not talking about Bank of Canada. You're not talking about interest rates, because you have to remember this drip campaign has to work today, but it also has to work 6 months from now when you drop somebody into it. So you want to avoid things that are too time sensitive. Those are better off to be sent as a newsletter or a one-off email, not in a drip campaign. So the system we're using today is MyBroker Pro, which is built on top of Go High Level. And where you're going to go to build that is in the automation section. In the automation section, there's actually, if you go to create workflow, you can search from the templates and you can actually choose one that is called drip campaign. Let's see here. See all these, they call them recipes, but essentially they're just templates. There is one email drip sequence. So if you use that, you can see that this email sequence, we use this one often. However, I'm going to build one from scratch today that's a little bit simpler. And what you're looking at here is the trigger, which we'll go through in a second. And then now you've got that first email you're going to send them. You're going to wait a day and you're going to send them another email, wait a day and then another email. But the difference with this sequence compared to the one that I'm going to show you today is that it tries to repurpose email number 1. So if the client doesn't open email number 1, it sends them the same message the next day with a different subject line. So it's actually we like this one the most. However, it is a little bit more complex. So we'll build something simpler today. But what I like about it is if they don't open the email, they can live in your drip campaign quite a bit longer because they get retargeted with the same email with a different subject line the following week or month, whatever you decide. So I quite like this one. Alan, you're with us for MyBroker Pro, so you've probably seen this before. Like, we tend to use this sequence a lot when we're doing it. However, what we'll do today is we'll create a new workflow from scratch. So today, the example I'm going to do is a drip campaign, and I'm going to do bruised credit. And if you guys are with MyBroker Pro after, you guys can decide if you want this or not. But so you always have to have a trigger. So if I zoom in a little bit here, because it's always hard to see, a trigger is always, okay, how is this going to happen? How am I going to turn on the light switch? What's the trigger to make this workflow start? Okay, so in this case, I find the easiest to be a tag. So what we would do is we would click on the trigger here and we would search for the word tag. Now, in this case, I would say the easiest thing would be to add a contact tag that says drip campaign, and then you'll call it bruised credit. So that way, when you look for the tag in your system, you find that tag and you're like, okay, I know that this is the drip campaign for bruised credit specifically, not just generic or anything like that, because we have another one that's called drip campaign general, and it's just general information. So you'll add a filter here. You'll select tag added. Now this tag doesn't exist yet, right? So you have to type it in. You can see the drip campaign general one there. So that's not the one we're going to use today. We're going to write a new one. Why can't I type today? And then we'll write bruised credit. And then you'll do add new tag. Okay, so now it's in there. You don't have to go anywhere else to do that. So before I get too far, I always like to save my workflow because there's nothing like building something out and then you go to hit save and there's an error. So I like to save pretty much right off the bat. So now we've got the trigger. So now we're basically like, okay, if I added bruised credit tag to one of my contacts, I want them to get this new drip campaign that I'm going to build. So next you have to decide how long after you add the tag do you want them to start receiving emails? So I would probably say, you know, if it's your first email, maybe 7 days or something like that. But so you'll search for what's called a wait step. So you're like, I want to wait 7 days. You'll notice I always write the names of my actions because you want to be able to read your workflow a lot quicker than having to click into everything every single time. Then you'll hit 7 and then you'll change this to days. Now you can change this to whatever you want. Maybe you want it to be 1 day. Maybe you want it to be 30 minutes. Maybe you want it to be 1 minute. Really doesn't matter. So you can click into this and you can change this at any time. Okay, so now after this, you're like, okay, I want them to get my first email. So you'll type in email and you're going to say, I want to send an email. So this email, I'm going to call it number 1. And then of course I've used handy dandy ChatGPT, right, to write some emails for us. So in this case, I'm going to call this one 5 million Canadians have bruised credit. If you're with the system, it'll pull your name automatically and it should pull your email automatically as well. So now I'm going to put that as the subject line. And then, Alan, you've probably seen in the past where we've used templates, but in this case, I'm just going to use like what we call like an HTML box here. So it looks more like an email and less like a newsletter. So what I got was ChatGPT to create the email for me. So you can see here, sometimes I find Go High Level will add a link here and you'll get an error. So you just have to remove it because that's not what you want. And then I noticed it did it at the bottom as well. So we'll remove that link. So now you'll look at your format, especially if you're copying from ChatGPT. You'll make sure that everything looks good, that there's not too many weird spaces. And then you'll make sure you're happy with it. So you'll see I used what's called custom values. A custom value is so that every time this says, hey, contact names, it'll say, hey, Robert, hey, Alan, hey, Sarah, whoever the specific contact is. And I'm using user signature because if you guys decide to use this, it'll just plop in your user signature from your account details. So you can always test your email, which is always recommended so that you can see what it looks like. When you send test emails, an important reminder is that the signature will not be attached. So let me get the email here. So now you can see the email. You can see that it's because it's a test, it's not going to show my name, but you can see the title, you can see the email, and then everything else. So I'm kind of happy with that. I'll probably leave it as is and keep going. So now we'll save the action, and now you've got your first email. So now if we take a step back and look at our sequence, we've added a tag, we're waiting 7 days, and then they're getting their first email. So now how much longer do we want to wait again? Probably, I would say, another 7 days, right? So we'll do wait 7 days, and then we'll put a 7 here, and then days, okay? And then after that, we'll do the same thing. We'll hit the plus, we'll write email, and we're gonna now get ready to do our second email. So in here, I've got 1 late payment can cost you 100 points, and we'll do the same subject line. And then we'll do copy paste this here. Okay, so now because we're copy pasting again, for some reason it likes to add these. If you don't get rid of these little links, you'll get an error when you go to save it. So it's always nice to get rid of here. So we'll do a space here. We'll do a space here. And we'll do a space here so that it looks good. And again, if you wanted to, you can send a test email, but as you get more comfortable with the system, you're good. So we would continue this pattern, which I will after the call to finish up the workflow, but you would continue this pattern until you have, you know, however many emails you want. And in this case too, if you wanted to, you can change it to 30 days. I'd probably keep the first one 7 days, so it's not too long until they get their email. But then after that, 30 days. And then you can change this to be monthly, because maybe with Bruised Credit, it's a bit aggressive to probably email them once a week since they're working on their credit. It'll take a little bit of time. So you'll keep going. And then what I like to do at the end is I always like to add what's called an internal notification. And this is a notification to yourself. And I just like to say like, hey, this client's at the end of the workflow. And what's nice about this, you select email and you can be from whoever you want, but you can do drip campaign, Bruised Credit at end of workflow. And then that way you get notified when that person's at the end, so you can decide what the action is at that point. So I'm just going to remove that for now. Another thing you can do is, you know,
Sarah,
yeah.
How do you make sure that that notification gets to you?
Yeah, that one. So if we go back to internal, so internal notification. So we'll just finish that step then. Internal notification. This could be from whoever. If we usually write the workflows, it's usually from My Broker Pro, but you can write from yourself. It doesn't really matter. And to which user. So in this case, you can go all users or a particular user, and you can select who it is. So if you wanted to get it, or maybe your assistant, or maybe whoever, or if you want everybody to get it, then poof, everybody in your account will get it as well. But typically you would use assigned user or custom email, and you type in the email. But I would probably choose particular user, choose yourself or whoever it's going to be. And then I would put, you know, end of workflow. I'd probably put their name in it too, so that you're like, okay, Sarah's at the end of this workflow. She's ready to go. And then I would type a little message here to tell you what you want, right? Like, okay, Sarah's at the end of the workflow. You should probably call her, try maybe book an appointment, that kind of thing. So I would do that. Another thing I would probably do is with Bruised Credit specifically, and some other workflows, after 2-3 months, I'd probably add a task in here. Add task so that you can call the client. So in this case, you would do Bruised Credit campaign, and then I would probably put the client's name, full name. Oh, that's user. Sorry, 1 second here. So you can see I click on this little tag, and then contact, full name, Bruised Credit campaign, and then we would just say, you know, contact name has been in Bruised Credit campaign for 3 months, probably a good time to check in. And then you can probably find, if you have their phone number, email and phone number here. I like raw phone number because then you can click on it. So if you're using the app, it's nice to be able to click on it, or phone is fine as well. So you can do like contact info, and then you've got email, phone number from there. And then assign to. So in this case, you can assign to Jane Doe if you wanted to. And how many days is this due in? Well, this is probably not that urgent, so you can save the action there. So then I really like the add task because, yeah, you worked hard to get that lead. And if you're building a campaign, it's always good to pick up the phone. I obviously, you guys know I love automations, but there's nothing like talking to somebody on the phone. Another thing you can do throughout this campaign, because emails are effective, but text messages are more effective. So if you have their phone number, you can type in SMS here, and you could be like 3-month check-in, and you can say, hey, I say hey, a lot of people like hi, but you can say, hey, first name, hope all is well. I just wanted to check in and maybe schedule a time to chat about your mortgage or about your credit and mortgage options. Looking forward to hearing from you. You don't want it to be too robotic or ChatGPT written because you want it to actually feel like you're sending them a text message, right? You can, because this is the first one too, you can actually say like, hey, it's, oh, my computer's on French mode. You can say, hey, it's Sarah. You can write your name, but in this case, I'm just going to put the username from, and then you can put your company name. Where's company? User contact account. There you go. Account name. So basically you're like, hey, it's Sarah from Mortgage Company. Hope all is well. And then that way they know who it is when they're getting the text message as well 3 months later. I just wanted to check in and maybe schedule time to chat about your credit and mortgage options. Looking forward to hearing from you. So you'll save that. And that's a great way too. Now, if they respond to any of this, you know that you can reach back out, right? So lastly, so I would continue building this, which I'll do after, but it'll go over our 15 minutes here. And the last thing I would do is always look at your settings. Okay, so I would allow reentry, which means you can put the person back in the workflow again, like they don't have to just be in it once. Allow multiple opportunities. This one, I don't know if that really makes sense because an opportunity is like a purchase and a refi. Well, that's the same person. And if they have bruised credit, you don't really need to give them two messages, right? Stop on response is a really great action, which means if they respond to any of these emails, the workflow would actually stop. However, this isn't required for a drip campaign because you still want them to get that next message. Even if they respond, you want them to get the email next month, right? So this is better used for maybe it's a lead campaign where you're sending them continuous emails. And then the moment they respond, you don't want to send them any more emails, right? So this is good for that. This communication is, when do you want to send this message? Typically, it's the account time zone. So you can choose contact time zone or your own time zone. If you're working across Canada, I'd probably suggest contact time zone, which means that if you say you want the message to be sent at 9:30 a.m., it's being sent on that contact's time zone, or account is yours, okay? And then you can choose specific times. And for this drip campaign, I would actually recommend that. So you toggle this over and you decide which days you want this. In my brain, Mondays are a write-off. Our inboxes are full. I don't think there's any reason you would want to send a drip campaign on a Monday because the client will probably just disregard it and put it in junk mail. Fridays are also a write-off. We're getting ready for the weekend. I don't check my emails. I just delete them and send them to spam. So Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays to me are kind of winners. 8 a.m. is a bit early. I would say you want to give the contact, depending on how active they are in their email. It's hard to say. The general consumer is not as active as we are because we're always in our inboxes, right? But I'd probably pick something like between 9 and 10 so that they're done cleaning up their inbox and then now you're kind of popping up. So let's just say 9:30. 5 p.m., that's way too late. So we want this message to probably go out before, I would say, I always think of parents. So I think, okay, well, they're probably going to pick their kids up at 2:30. So they're going to stop checking their emails. Let's just say at 1:30. I might be totally out to lunch here, but that's just how my brain works. I picture when I want to read an email. So now you're saying, okay, if I put somebody into this drip campaign, if I do it on Sunday, they're not going to get that first email until, like, it's not going to trigger until Tuesday. So nothing happens for the first 2 days. So if you're ever working on your workflow and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I added that tag and nothing happened, it might be the day, it might be the delay or the 7 days we added at the beginning, any of that, right? So oftentimes people, when they come to me and they're confused that something didn't work, it's because we've added specific dates for the campaign to work. Now you can add your sender details in here, like from your name, from your email, and from which phone number you have in the system. However, it's always based on your account. So you only really need to do this if there's multiple people in your account, like admins and maybe a marketing person or whatever. So you want it to be from a specific person. Otherwise, no need to do that. And then I always, for drip campaigns like this, I always mark as read. Otherwise, your little inbox in My Broker Pro or in Go High Level will get full from your own emails, which I find very annoying. So I always mark as read, which doesn't mean if they reply, it'll be read. It just means that you won't have. Otherwise, if every time that email goes up, it'll show as unread in your inbox, which I find kind of silly. So I always mark as read. I hit save and go from there. So now you can see you've got your builder. You're probably done your workflow at this point. You've changed your settings. Once you do add people to this workflow, you can check enrollment to see who's in there, where they're at, if they've opened emails, all sorts of stuff. If somebody didn't get an email, you're like, hey, I added Alan in here and I could see that he didn't get it. Check the execution logs because maybe there was a spelling mistake. Maybe something happened and there was an error. So the execution log will show you errors or successful sent submissions and things like that. Another thing I like about the workflow is this side here. So you can see here, no errors found, everything is good. This is statistics, which once you have several or 100 people in here, maybe you're going to add your whole contact list. I love this stats view because you click on it and it now shows you every single email and what the delivered, open, clicked, replied, and bounced rate was for that email. So now you can really target, once you have data here, you can actually click on it. And then there's nothing better than if people are opening your emails consistently. To me, that is a sign that you should call them because it's like, okay, this person's engaged, they're opening, they've replied, whatever the case is. So these stats to me are gold. You've taken the time to create this. It's always great to look into your analytics and be like, okay, Sarah opened this. I'm going to give her a call next week and ask her if she had any questions about that email or anything else, right? You can add notes here to the workflow, which sometimes we do as an agency so that you guys know, or sticky notes. So sometimes you'll see if I build campaigns, sometimes I'll add sticky notes and I'll say, don't forget to update who the user is or whatever the case is. But so sometimes I'll use sticky notes, but not super popular with you guys. And that's it for there. You've got your zoom in, zoom out here. And that's pretty much it. So with that, 5 minutes to spare. Any questions? Alan, I'm happy you're back. You were like a regular, and then this summer, all the regulars fizzled out, and I was left with all my note takers.
No, it's all good. It's just that there are a lot of conflicts.
Yeah.
And meetings and.
Yeah, we've been putting them in the hub though. Have you checked the hub recently?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
okay.
That's what I prefer, right?
Perfect,
but I still need to spend decent amount of time on automation and understand how everything works. But I have to work on a file, so it's
got to make the money first for sure.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Yeah, no, I got you for sure. Exactly. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, Robert, you're new here. If you want to ask any questions or reach out after, you're more than welcome to. But we do this every Thursday. And again, we have more note takers than humans usually. So
yeah, I hopped in through. I'm with Valerie Real Estate, so we
nice.
promote it every week. So it's the first that I've hopped on. No, very very useful. I've actually started creating a couple through ChatGPT, just some emails that I can plug into something like this, just to
Perfect.
stay top of mind.
So you're with with the Realty Group. Perfect. Yeah. So Shannon, the Bruce credit doesn't really work for you, but it's the exact same. Yeah.
Just the evergreen idea, and it's very helpful. So I appreciate that.
Good. Tell your friends.
I will.
Okay, with that, I will let you guys go. I'll see you next week and we'll go from there. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye.